So remember we told you guys that we wanted to share the journey of us becoming super hosts again. And that's what we're starting now. And that's what you're going to be seeing in the next video in just a few seconds, right? And the whole idea around it is this. We want to show you where we used to be, how we became super hosts, and how we lost the super host status, and how we are now getting back. So this first episode of this segment of the series is going to cover where we've been, becoming super hosts, doing things great for quite some time, for several years actually, and then losing it, and give you an update in terms of where we are in terms of this whole recovery process. I hope this makes sense, and I hope you guys enjoy this video, because there's going to be more of it coming over the next couple of weeks. I wanted to share our journey back to becoming super hosts, and a large part of that was to consistently give you guys feedback in terms of understanding where we are and how we go about going from where we are to becoming super hosts again. So in doing so, something which became important was to give you guys a bit of context in terms of what's happened up until now, right? I keep mentioning that we used to be super hosts. So I wanted to give you guys a quick brief in terms of where we were from a ratings point of view, how we became super hosts, and how we started to decline back to being normal hosts, and how we're coming back up again in terms of becoming super hosts again. So I'm going to start with a bit of history in terms of where we've been, and then get on to the recent reviews that we've been getting from our guests, right? The idea, as promised, is to give you guys an update every week. I think maybe 2 weeks is more realistic, so that you guys can see our progress over time. Okay, so the basic layout in terms of how we go about doing so is to go to insights and then to go into superhosts, right? And here you are presented with the few criteria or KPIs, which help you in terms of tracking whether you're going to become a superhost or not, right? And they are largely your overall rating, which needs to be 4.8 and above. It's about your response rate, which needs to be over 90%, and the number of nights of stay that people have had with you, and then also the cancellation rate, which needs to be less than 1%. Okay, I hope all of this makes sense to all of you guys, and let's get it right into it. As you can see, right now we are at 4.1 overall rating, which is nowhere close to where it needs to be, right, which is 4.8. But if you look at how Airbnb has designed this whole layout, it's designed in such a way that it's on a rolling period, which happens every 3 months. So it's July, August, it's July, it's October, it's April and January. So any rolling 1 year period between those months, you'll be given a shot to become a superhost. All right. So if you do enough good things consistently for a period of a year or so, you will start going up in terms of the ratings. Okay. So we've had this Airbnb for quite some time. I think from July 2017. And if you look here, right, we were doing everything right, except for one thing. which was the number of stays. So we were getting 5 stars, which is fantastic. Our response rate used to be 100%. Trips reviewed used to be 86% and 0 cancellations. But if you look closely over here, you'll notice that we hadn't yet received or hosted 10 guests or 10 stays. So we needed to get up to this level for us to be considered for superhost status. Okay? And then over time, through people coming in, we became superhosts. Yeah? So in October 2017 to 30 September 2018, we became superhosts. And from that time, we consistently became superhosts. Our overall rating was generally between 4.8, 4.9 was the most common one, to 5 in certain cases, so we were killing it. We were doing very, very well, and for a good couple of years, we were superhosts. I'm just going through this quickly so that you guys can get an idea in terms of where we were and when things started to go sideways. All right. So even at the peak of COVID, we were still superhosts. At some stage, we even hit 5 stars, which was very, very hard to do in those circumstances. Yeah. And this case was July 2020 to June 2021. Right. And at this point, this is where things start to go a bit south for us, because I remember then that's when our priorities changed a bit in terms of what we wanted to focus on, and as a result, we left the Airbnb to be run by specific people, which takes me to my next point, which is the fact that even though you might shift the day-to-day running of your Airbnb, you need to be watching that thing like a hawk so that you make sure that the standards are maintained at all times. Yeah? All right. So if you look here, I think this was the last time that we achieved superhost status, right? And then it went south. See, this was the first time that we did not become superhosts. And if you notice here, we also dropped in terms of our response rate. So there was a time when a guest asked us the question and we didn't respond within a 24-hour period, which is something that you should never do. Whenever you get a request from a guest, you get a notification from Airbnb and you also get a message from Airbnb. Answer those questions or those requests within an hour. That's generally the best practice in terms of making sure that you stay superhosts. Yeah? All right. And then things got a bit worse, and as with any type of momentum, if you don't cut it, if it's negative, it starts to continue for quite some time. If you look here, we got to our worst level, which is 4.1, which is where we currently are, right? And things weren't really looking good. I mean, we even dropped further from a response point of view, which is something that you should never do. Yeah? And if you look here, which is the current cycle, we're still at 4.1, but at least our response rate has gone up. So what we now need to do is we need to get the overall rating back up to at least 4.8. We think we can take it up to 4.9, but let's see how that goes, because everything else, even though we haven't done a great job in the last couple of months or so, everything else is still doing great from an Airbnb point of view. The minute we get our overall ratings up, it's going to help quite a bit in terms of us becoming superhosts. Okay. Wanted to give you a brief background in terms of some of the negative ratings that we were getting, right? And give you some meat, so to speak, in terms of understanding what our guests were saying around the ratings that we were getting, right? The first one is a guest, I think, was from Japan, yeah? and obviously the guest names are blurred out so that privacy is maintained. Privacy of our guests is very, very important, and as such we wouldn't want to reveal any identifying details around our guests, whether it's their faces or just their names. Okay, so everything has been blurred out for privacy's sake. Yeah. All right. So this guest, I remember, was one of those really smart guys. He had I think he had like 3 or so laptops, and for whatever reason, the previous service provider that we used for internet had become inconsistent, and this guy was not happy about it. And what made it weird, which is what's cool about this sometimes, is the fact that he couldn't really speak proper English, but because of the facial expressions and how frustrated he was, we could see that he wasn't happy about the fact that he didn't have internet for the first hour or 2 of his day, and that's why I keep saying, one of the cardinal sins that you could make in your Airbnb is to not have a reliable internet connection, right? This is one of those things. That and having a clean space are non-negotiables. Okay, so this, by the way, was our first 2-star rating. I think the lowest one that we had gotten previously before this one was about 3. So this was like us hitting rock bottom. Yeah. And for some reason, we were so distracted with other things, we didn't really pay attention, and as such, you will see other relatively negative ratings coming into the fold. Okay. All right. So this is what he says, and he says it in Japan, and as you can see, the first word there is Wi-Fi. So he was very, very unhappy. I mean, I translated his feedback, and it was basically the fact that he wasn't happy about the fact that he didn't have Wi-Fi when he got there. We eventually sorted it out, but that should never have been the case, especially for somebody that does his work on the internet. Okay, and then the next guest was kind enough to give us some positive ratings, and I don't think we really deserved it given the attention that we were given. In this case, I think we just got lucky with this guest, and they gave us some positive ratings, and as you can see, cleanliness was still not on top, and cleanliness is one of those things, guys. It should always be a 5-star unless you got somebody who's pedantic about debt and all of these things. So it's something that you should never compromise on. I'm happy to get 4 stars for accuracy or for location or something like that, but cleanliness is something that, if there's a 4-star there, it's something that's really gonna bother me. So something that I need to understand from a guest point of view as to what exactly was not clean about it. Yeah. All right. So that's the feedback that we got from this guest. This one was a lot more forgiving from a cleanliness point of view, and they gave us 4 stars. I think if we were paying attention, we could have gotten 5 stars from this particular guest, but that was not the case, because we were distracted, as I mentioned. And the last one, didn't really want to say much, was kind enough to give us feedback that says great place and a comfortable bed. Okay, and then this is what happened. If you look at our most recent ones, right? So around June, that's when we okay, that's when I had a chat with tshepang and said, you know what, we need to start focusing on this, because we had gotten a very nasty review from one of our guests, and it was simple things. So that was the frustrating thing with it, and I realized if you leave the basics not done, communicating specific things up front, risk a guest having expectations not met and sending out a nasty one. So this is the one that really forced us to pay attention in terms of the quality of our stay. It had something to do with the parking, and for whatever reason, I'm not sure where she got that information from or that assumption came from. She assumed that she would have parking, and despite the fact that we had said that there's no parking which is provided, she had assumed, and she was very unhappy with that. And the crazy thing is, if we were available all the time and talking to her all the time, we would have been able to organize parking, because there is a way in which we are able to organize parking for our guests if they need it. But we didn't even know, and as a result, she left this nasty rating for us and a review for us, and that's when we were like, okay, dude, we need to focus on this and put systems in place. So now I think this one guest was the inspiration for having pre-check-in automated messages, for instance, or making sure like guests understand exactly what needs to be done. So we even updated our list because of this one guest, right? So once we started doing so, as expected, the ratings started to reflect. And that's the one thing I like about Airbnb, is the fact, or any other business to be honest, the more you systematize and you get into the process of actually making sure that you pay attention, you're doing the right things, you're doing the basics well, and you give proper attention to something, it starts to reflect over time. So starting from June, started getting positive reviews. This one guy said some really kind things to us, and all of this happened because we were paying attention. We cared about him having a great stay with us, and what I like about him is he didn't just say the nice things. He said the handrails and the tissue holder need to be more secured as well, which is something that we asked our handyman to sort out. The next one didn't really say much, gave us 5 stars, and this is one of those guests where we actually had to ask him to give us a rating, and luckily he gave us a positive rating. And like I said, you must ask for a positive rating, so that you can get it. If you don't ask for it, you won't get it. And then we got feedback. One thing I wasn't happy with this was the fact that cleanliness was not 5 stars, right? And luckily I had a great relationship with this guest, and then they told me exactly what needed to be fixed, and as a result, we took that up with the cleaner to say, let's fix this thing, because it's going to be impossible for you to cover everything. But every time you get feedback from guests, make sure that you action on that feedback. And this was the last one that we had, last one being the last guest that we had, and I remember this guest had like an anniversary of some sort, and they had wanted it to be special, so we left a little something for them. I won't mention what, so that it would add to their experience, and because of that, as I've always mentioned, you get what you put in. We got a very good review from this one guest, and the idea is for us to always be putting 100%, and they even promised that they would be coming through again. So these are the reviews so far. As we get more, we've got a couple of outstanding reviews from our guests. As we get them, we will be sharing them so that you guys can become part of this process, and it's not just something that we share in retrospect, but you see the process. In certain cases we might get 4 stars, 3 stars, or even 2 stars, right? I doubt we will get 2 stars unless it's one of those nasty guests, but even if we do get those, we will share it with you guys so that you can understand the context around it, so that this whole thing is more relatable. It's not just me or us giving you the final outcome. It's about you understanding how we get to this point. Okay, my name is Seth. I hope you find value in this video and a whole lot more videos that we're going to be putting out. I am an ex-super host and an aspiring super host. I hope you guys have found value in this. Sharp.